What's going on, guys? Sean here, Hammerhead Garage. Happy Sunday, dudes. Coming at you live from Hot Rod Alley here in Nova Scotia. As you can judge by the colorful thumbnail, what tonight's topic will be, did a clown rebuild your engine? Well, if you notice party balloons and flowers that when you push the plunger squirt you in the eye, maybe so. I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I guess I'm going to try and steer some of you folks the right way. If you don't understand something, I'm going to try and make it straight. So anyway, get your favorite beverage, popcorn, whatever your beer, whatever it is, and hang on. I got a good topic of discussion tonight. So anyway, there's a well-known YouTube channel. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't do that. I commented on one of their videos this week, and their topic was common home engine builder mistakes. Common home engine builder mistakes. And one of the things he was telling them to do, or you could do, is to take a set of rings. Hey, man, what's going on? We got royalty in the house tonight. This guy's garage. Hey, Sean. Anyway, what he was telling you to do was to take the rings, okay, and slide them down into the cylinder near the bottom, at the middle, and at the top, and then measure the gaps, and you can get some idea as to what the taper is going to be. Now, that is correct, okay? I can't say that that's wrong because that is true. But he was telling people that if you want to measure out around, what you can do is you backlight the rings. You take a flashlight, you shine it in under the bore, and then you look in from the top and you see if there's any light goes around the ring. So there's two things that go on in a cylinder typically, guys. One's taper, which is this, okay? Typically wider at the top, narrower at the bottom. What causes that is over time, an engine, because of the many, many millions of cycles, power strokes, will get loose. It'll wear the top part of the cylinder into a less than perfectly up and down round, kind of tapered like that, because this is where all the combustion pressure takes place, right on the power stroke. So it tends to wear heavy there, and a lot of times it'll be nominal. What I mean by nominal is it's right in the standard range where it should be measurement wise at the bottom, at the base of where the piston goes down at the bottom of the stroke. So anyway, for a guy that's been doing that a lot, and he knows obviously his stuff, he's got like over 100,000 subscribers. It's not the correct way, okay, to do it. There's no substitute for measurement. All right. I could tell you that 2x4 over there is 48 and 11/16 inches. Now, whether it is or it isn't is irrelevant. Chances are I'm going to be wrong. If I didn't measure it, how do I know it's 48 and 11/16? It may be close to that. It probably won't be. And that's the exact same thing that'll happen if you don't measure things, okay? If you want to know how much out around or how much taper you got in the cylinder, you have to measure it, okay? There's no guessing. Would you want to spend a couple $1,000 to a guy to take your engine apart and just guess at what needs to be replaced? Or do you want to spend that money on somebody that knows what needs to be replaced? And let me tell you, there is a way to know, okay? 100% you're sure, and that's called measurement. And I'm just going to show you some of the measuring tools that I use tonight and some of the methods I use to measure shit. This applies to any type of engine, from a Briggs & Stratton right up to a 9,000 horsepower friggin' engine. It's basically the same, right? The measurement part of it. But anyway, just enjoying a beverage here. I got my old Christmas cup here. It's the only one that's actually clean. That's why I'm drinking out of this. But anyway, yeah. All that's going to do by sliding the rings in the cylinder and measuring the end gaps, it might give you an idea of taper. But the problem is what is the base measurement of the cylinder to begin with? All you're really getting there is the taper on a worn out already cylinder. You're not getting the taper the way it should be actually read. Anytime you measure a cylinder, okay, You want to measure it bottom, middle, top on 2 axes. And by what I mean by 2 axes is I mean an x-axis and a y-axis. Okay, so top, middle, bottom, and then 90 degrees, top, middle, bottom. And that'll give you a better idea as to the condition of the thing. Okay, now there's other ways of doing it. Some guys, they take another set of measurements and they go diagonally across the cylinder. And so they measure a total of 9 times, and that'll give you an even better picture as to what's going on. So what was going on with this guy's engine, what he was saying was the thing would run great at low RPM, okay? It would run perfect. But as soon as he got the thing up to 4,000 RPM, it would fall completely flat on its face. It would run like a bag of hammers. So what he determined what it was, now here's what he did. He did all the right things. He did a compression check, and it was 160 PSI in the cylinders. He adjusted his air fuel mixture. He even took the cam and he degreed the cam in, and he did a whole bunch of things, which is the right way of going about it. Yeah, it was Friday night, Sean, actually. Anyway, he did all that, and it still didn't affect anything. So what he found out was that the cylinder had a whole pile of taper in it. So what the rings were doing is they were sealing on the bottom of the stroke just fine because the cylinder was near nominal down there. But as the piston went up to the top, the rings started to pull apart. And what happens when the rings pull apart is that you start to lose compression. So as the engine was speeding up, it was spending a lot more time, a lot of time at the top, and the ring gap was huge. So he was getting all kinds of blow by. And of course, the thing's never going to run right. 9 times out of 10, anytime I've seen an engine that wouldn't respond to tuning, there's something either electrical going on with it or there's something mechanical wrong with it. Now, this thing even passed a compression test. I think what I would have done personally was I would have done a leak down test on it. And you guys know what that is. I put 100 pounds of compressed air on top of the piston and just see how much of it the cylinder will hold. A really good engine, like a race quality engine, should hold 95% of that. Have a 5% leakage figure, which is excellent. Okay, 3 to 5%, they say, for race engines. Anything more than 10% leakage, I go looking for the cause. If it's a performance engine, if it's just grandma's Buick, you can run them right up to like 15, 20% even, and they'll run okay. But remember, if you've got an engine that's got 10% leak down, that means that it's only producing 90% of its available power in that cylinder. You're losing 10% of the available pressure that could be turned into power, right? So I always go looking for it. But anyway, this is about measurement. So I'll just show you what I use. Okay, some of the things I use to measure stuff. All right. There's a bunch of ways of doing this, but there's only one real good way. This is a set of snap gauges. T gauges, some guys call them. I know a lot of you guys have seen these before. And basically what you do is you take them out. There's all different sizes. They're spring loaded so that you can compress them and they'll fit inside the cylinder. So then once you get them in the cylinder, you rock them around and stuff until you get them right up and down. And then what you can do is once they're in the cylinder, you got them nice, it's nice and centered and it's rocked up and down. You just turn this little dial at the top and it'll actually lock your measurement in. Okay. So then you got the measurement, let's say the inside diameter of that cylinder, top, middle, bottom, and then on x-axis, and then top, middle, bottom on y-axis. So then what you want to do, you have a nice vise set up with a outside micrometer. You guys have all seen what an outside mic looks like, okay? One of these. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this measurement and you're going to measure it with this outside mic to get your actual measurement. Hey, maintenance man, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on. So you're going to want to measure it. Obviously, this T gauge is not going to fit in this mic, but there's all different kinds of mics, all different sizes of mics. I'm not going to tell you how to read a micrometer because you can learn that on the internet. There's all kinds of guys that'll teach you how to do that stuff. But anyway, once you get your measurement, what you're going to want to do then is you're going to want to take your largest measurement from your smallest measurement, and you're going to want to get the difference, and that will give you either your taper or your at around for that cylinder. You get a service manual, see what it says in the manual for your particular engine, because they're all different, boys. They're all different. Years ago, okay, before I even got into mechanics back in the 70s, air-cooled motorcycles, let's say like Kawasaki or like a CB Honda, the piston to cylinder clearance on those engines typically used to be around 4 thousandths, okay, 4 to 5 thousandths, which is pretty loose. But they were air-cooled engines, and air-cooled engines are generally looser because they're designed to, when they heat up, they go in tolerance. You know what I mean? Like things expand so that they go into tolerance. Nowadays, in modern sport bikes and modern engines, it's not uncommon to have engines that have less than, or that have a thousandth of an inch of piston to cylinder clearance. I know some of the sport bikes that Japan's making, they've got really short skirts. The piston skirts are super short. There's only 2 rings. There's not 3 rings now. And they have short rods, and they're spinning them things 17,000, 18,000 RPM. So the cylinder clearances are vital. In fact, all clearances in engines are vital. Okay. I mean, and like I said, you can't really go by looks. I mean, you can tell by looking inside a cylinder whether it's scored or if there's damage or something, visible damage. But you can't peer in there, and nobody can, and tell me exactly how much taper's in it or how much at-around's in there. That's why you have to measure stuff. There's no guessing. You have to know. So if you don't know how to do that, buy the tools, teach yourself to do it. And the only way to do that is by doing it. Just get old junk engines like I started out. I got old junk engines and then bought measuring tools and then learned how to use them. If you can't do it, then just go to a machine shop. They'll be more than happy to measure stuff for you and give you accurate measurements of stuff, right? Even if you don't want them to build the engine for you, if you just want them to measure your parts, they'll do that as well. Just Ranch It. What's happening, man? I measure twice, bore once. Yeah, that's always a good plan. You know, you can get yourself in trouble rapidly for doing it the other way. Another thing you probably hear a lot about is called a dial bore gauge. Okay. I like to use all forms of measurement, including inside and outside mics, T gauges, and dial bore gauges. I'll tell you the advantage of using a dial bore gauge. Okay. Speed. Once you figure out what your nominal size is you're looking for, what you do is you take your dial bore gauge. They look like this. Okay. The gauge comes off. Just loosen this thing off. The gauge actually comes right off of there. And on it, I don't know if you can see the graduations on this one, but it's in millimeters on this one because most of what I measure is in millimeters. So this one here does up to 3 millimeters. You can see there's a hand up here, goes 1 to 3. So this one will do right up to 3 millimeters. Each one of these graduations, these little dashes, is 0.01 of a millimeter. So if you need to convert that over to inches, which is what I do with this one, because sometimes I'm measuring an engine that's inches, is you take your millimeter measurement and you multiply by 0.3937 or 0.3975. You multiply it by that, and that'll give it to you in inches. So you can do your measurement. This one here does 50 to 160 millimeters. So it's got all these different, I like to call them anvils. I don't know what you guys call them, but it doesn't really matter. I don't know if I can show it to you or not, but it's got all these different anvils for different sizes, and they go right up from 50 mil right up to 105 millimeters. And depending on the cylinder, it depends on which one of these you put in there. And then they have shims up on top that go from half a millimeter right up to 3 millimeters, so you can fine tune it. You can get it right in there. So once you get the measurement you're looking for, okay, let's just say you want to measure cylinder and you know that the standard range is 87.5 millimeters is the standard range. So what you would do is you would take your micrometer and you would set it at 87.5 millimeters. Okay, just set it right in your vise. I have a little vise that the mic will sit in. Then you take your dial bore gauge, you put the right anvil in, and you put it right in the micrometer. And then you zero the gauge. So you know right now your mic is reading 87.5 millimeters. Okay, this is just theoretical. Then what you do is you put this right inside the cylinder and you rock it back and forth, and then you're looking for variance. You're looking for variance on this gauge here, okay? And if the gauge goes to the right of 0, that's adding millimeters to your measurement. If it goes to the left, that's subtracting from the measurement. So you can go down the bore really quickly, and you'll know just by glancing at it and with experience whether or not your cylinder is over tolerance or under tolerance. And just doing that, you using the X and Y axis, you can get a really quick read on 4 cylinders to see if they got a lot of taper in them or right around. So it speeds things up quite a bit. So anyway, what do you do? Okay, let's say you got an engine and you got a whole bunch of taper and you got a whole bunch out around. Well, what's a whole bunch of taper and what's a whole bunch out around? Well, if you ask 2 engine builders, they'll give you different answers. But for me, anything over 2 thou of out around or 2 thou a taper is too much. But again, go to your service manual, see what it says for that particular engine, and base what you're saying on that, or what you're looking for, the measurements you're looking for on that, because that is that's the Bible basically for your engine. If it says no more than 1.5 thou or 1.5 thou of out around or taper, and you've got 2 thou of out around and 3 thou of taper, well, obviously you're going to have to machine the thing, okay, to get it straight. There is no way in hell that a round set of rings is ever going to seal on an oval hole. It just doesn't work. And anyone that's ever seen an engine that had a lot of at around in it, it knows usually by what's coming out of the tailpipe that there's trouble, right? It's the thing's a dog. It's down on power everywhere, right? And the bottom end of an engine, guys, is really important. A lot of guys put their money and their time into the heads and they put it into the top end, and that's important. But if the bottom end of your engine is not up to spec, forget it. There's no point going any further. Again, on the economy side of things, the best thing, if you don't want to build an engine, you just want to put one together and then build a cool top end for it, buy a runner. Get an engine from somebody that you already know runs, okay? Get one that you know doesn't have an oil control problem. You know that the bottom end's tight on it. And mileage isn't always a good indicator of how good the engine is. I've seen some engines that had only like 50, 60,000 kilometers or like 40,000 miles, and they were wore out. And it has to do with maintenance, how well the thing was cared for. The oil changes are huge, man, and still huge in modern machinery, modern engines. And you can have ones you're doing everything completely right. Sean knows all about this, that fiasco with his F-150 with the oil consumption problem. I know Sean, he did everything humanly possible correct that could be done to that engine, and it still had a problem, but that was a factory problem, a factory issue. But anyway, I'm just trying to set you guys, I don't pretend to know it all, okay? I built a lot of engines. I've never had any problems with oil control or any of that stuff. But I'm just trying to steer you right. Setting a set of rings with into your cylinder is not going to give you an accurate enough picture. It can tell you whether or not the engine's got a problem. Sure it can. But again, I've seen this so many times. Why would somebody put a brand new piston and rings in a cylinder that's way out of spec? You know, I don't know how many times, especially with snowmobiles. Guy gets a snowmobile engine on Kijiji for like $200. And first thing he does is he doesn't measure anything. He just goes and gets a new piston and a new set of rings and throws it in there and thinks it's going to be like hog wild, perfect. And it may run pretty good for a little bit, but it's not going to last long. Again, you can't get round rings to seal in an oval hole. It's just not possible. So if you want to avoid machining costs on an engine, get one that's a good runner and then build it the way you want. That's always a possibility. There's lots of core engines around, and engines that are like fairly low miles that have been taken care of. If you don't know what you're looking at, pay somebody like me or whatever to come out with you and check it out. A lot of times, if you pop a valve, a valve cover off, you can kind of tell, you get some sort of idea as to how well the thing was cared for as far as oil changes. You know, sometimes you can't too, right? Sometimes you're rolling the dice. Check with the scrapyard though, or with the junkyard. Sometimes, not always, but some of these guys do offer some sort of warranty where if you get a bum engine, you can get another one for free, like kind of like an in-store credit kind of deal. And that might be another way of getting around it. But yeah, I mean, Plastigauge works. If you guys don't know what Plastigauge is, it's these little wax strips that you can get, and you can use them to measure bearing clearances, like your crankshaft bearings or your rod bearings. Basically, you lay that strip across a clean bearing, and then you put everything together and you torque it up, and then you pull it apart, and then there's a scale right up on a piece of paper. You just set it beside your crushed piece of wax, and you can tell basically what the thickness or what the clearance is. It'll say like 1 thou, 1.5 thou, 2 thou. You get them all different sizes, all different types, and it works reasonably well. It works pretty good. I mean, you can get a fairly accurate picture as to what's going on, but there's no replacement for proper tools for measuring. I've got some cheap measuring tools here, and I've also got some expensive ones, Mitutoyo from Japan. And I paid $1,000 for a set of mics last year. I measured an engine last summer with both just to see what the difference was. And I figure that the cheaper tools are within 2 10,000ths difference between the Mitutoyo and the cheaper stuff, like Harbor Freight. You know, and basically that's pretty fine. I mean, that's the thickness of a piece of paper, right? So, but clearances do matter, guys. In an engine, clearances matter. Another thing that matters is cleanliness. If you wouldn't drop a sandwich and pick it back up and eat it, or timbit or something off of the area you're building the engine, then it's too dirty. I've seen that a lot of times too, where guys will put engines together and it's just filthy. It looks clean, but it's not. Every time I clean a cylinder or clean an engine and get it ready for final assembly, I use like super, super hot soapy water, and I scrub the shit out of it. And then I use white towels that don't like leave lint on the cylinders, and I wipe it clean with white towels until I can pull that towel out and I can look at it, and there's no dirt, there's no gum, there's no frig all left on that. It's clean. Then I know I got it clean. Blow out all the air passageways. You know, if you're taking the oil plugs out of the block, the screw in or press in ones, make sure you use new ones. Make sure you put sealant around them when you're putting them back in. And don't over torque those things, because lots of times if you over tighten them, you can split the block. They'll start to hydraulic. And anyone that's ever seen a set of rods out of an engine that's hydraulic knows that it's a friggin' mess. It looks like a pretzel. So I mean, you got to be careful with that stuff, right? But again, like, I'm not saying don't build your own engine. By all means, if you want to build an engine, have at her. But at least I got to give you the right information first. And if you decide to deviate off of that, well, it's your kind of your deal after at that point, right? These are just things that have worked for me. You know, learn to measure, right? It doesn't take long to learn how to read a micrometer, and it's just practice at that point. I used to get boxes of old wrist pins and pistons and all kinds of engine parts and just sit there on a clean table and measure, and then write down my measurements. And when I'm measuring something, I always take it 3 or 4 measurements of the same part back to back, just to verify if I'm doing the right thing, or my mic is zeroed right, and I'm getting close to the right measurement. Practice makes progress. I mean, sometimes when you first start measuring with micrometers, you'll get one measurement, and then you'll measure something, the next thing, and it's like, whoa, this is way out of whack. And then you realize that you didn't carry the decimal over or whatever, so you're actually adding it up wrong. You know what I mean? Like, but anyway, it's all easily learned, guys, and there's tons of books that'll teach you the fundamentals of all that. You can learn it all online if you want. And I'm a firm believer in those engine math books anyway. Like if you go to Amazon or some of these places, you can get a book on engine building math. And that goes into real fine detail about every aspect of engine building. Like even boring as hell shit, but it goes into every final little thing. But there's one thing I could say, is just do it right, man. If you're going to spend the money on parts, and God knows, we all know that shit's expensive. There ain't nothing cheap when it comes to decent quality, especially performance engines, right? And that's why I was so surprised that this dude was telling people this. I mean, and he's saying, go and make horsepower. Well, you might get lucky and maybe it's all right, but chances are you're not going to get lucky. It's like I said, it's like me trying to guess what the length of that 2x4 laying over there is. I bet you 98% of the time or 99% of the time I'm going to be wrong, if not 100% of the time, if I just try and guess the measurement. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't have time to be sitting there screwing around with something if I'm trying to build it and I want to make horsepower. I want to get the thing done and get it built right and get it running so that I can get in the thing and enjoy it. That's the whole purpose of it, right? Anyway, hope I'm not boring the shit out of you. Let me read some of the comments here. Nice tip for speed. Yeah. Just the boys talking amongst themselves. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm glad to see all you guys on here tonight. That's awesome. I appreciate that very much. I didn't have a clue what I was going to talk about until I saw that video from that well-known YouTuber. And I actually left a comment on his page calling him out sort of on that. And he did respond to me. And of course, there was the haters that come in too. You're going to get that. It doesn't matter. Like I always say, if you want to start a fight on the internet, all you got to do is comment and wait. That's the quickest way to start an argument or start a fight, right? Is just say something, right? And then, but anyway, that irregardless, I told you is the right way to do it. Take my word and take anyone else's word that's on here. That is the proper way to do it. You got to measure stuff, But anyway, controversy is good. Absolutely, it is, right? And like I said, I'm not saying I know everything, but I have built a lot of engines, and I've never had one come apart. Hail Mary, not yet, anyway. And I take a lot of time and a lot of pride in building my stuff. I measure a lot of stuff, and another thing too is part cleanliness. You can't measure parts unless they're properly cleaned. Like they have to be clean, guys, because lots of times hidden engine damage, you won't even see it until you get all the grease and mung and dirt and oil and everything off the parts. I've seen stuff that was cracked all to fuck, it was cracked to pieces and you never even saw it because it had a bunch of grease and shit and mud and stuff all over it. And it was filthy. So once you clean it through the parts washer a few times, then you can see all that stuff, right? And if you're getting a guy to build an engine for you and he's not giving you a bill and part of the labor bill is for cleaning parts and measuring it, and where it says right on the bill, measuring, cleaning parts, run away. Run fast the other way as fast as your feet can take you because he's not doing it right. He's what they're calling throwing it together, quote unquote. Do you want to trust your high RPM engine to someone throwing it together? I don't think so. I know I wouldn't want anybody building any of my stuff or touching anything of mine that's doing that. But you're only as good as your last job anyway, right? It comes, as far as anything goes, carpentry, whatever, mechanics is no different. Anyway, what else you guys want to talk about? I guess that pretty much winds up what I had to say tonight. Just wanted to show you some measuring tools. Oh, yeah, there's another set of tools here. You guys have seen these. These are called small hole gauge tools. And they're for measuring inside small little holes. It's basically the same idea as the snap gauge. You put them in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's kind of poor. But anyway, you insert it in the hole and then you get this kind of spring loaded here, and then you get the measurement, and then you just twist it like that to lock it, right? And then you pull it out. Then you can put your mic on this, and you can measure measure the bell end of it and get an idea as to what the size of it is, right? But some of these tools aren't that expensive. Like, there's nothing wrong when you're starting out measuring just buying the Harbor Freight stuff, or Princess Auto, I guess, here in Canada, wouldn't you say, Sean, is probably equivalent to Harbor Freight, a lot of what Harbor Freight has. Or Canadian Tire, I think sometimes they got some of them tools that aren't too bad. To tell you the truth, the Canadian Tire micrometers aren't that bad, really. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming in there, Just Wrench It. Nice having you on. Yeah, Sean was saying, yeah, I keep that one tool with me. But yeah, so anyway, if you guys are building anything, there's enough of us here on the internet that will give you a hand if you want to measure stuff. You're not sure how to, just reach out. Get a hold of me, get a hold of Sean, get a hold of any of these boys. A lot of these guys, they know what they're doing. Admiral Sandwich isn't here tonight. He's another mechanic. I guess they call them techs now, technicians. But anyway, he's one as well. So get a hold of any of us. We'll steer you in the right direction. And if we don't know it, amongst all of us, we'll get you an answer. Guaranteed. There's enough experience amongst all of us here. We'll get you an answer what you're looking to do. But anyway, yeah, so cool. Thanks for coming on. I'm going to wrap it up. Peace out, you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.